Doug was a great college basketball player, and he's still a good old basketball player via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. It's one of those stories. I understand, Doug, the NBA is a star-driven league. It should be blah, blah, blah. But I do look at Avery Bradley, and I think to myself, no, he would be on the floor with 3 minutes left in a game for the Lakers in the playoff spot. He feels like he'd be a starter, right? Like, it's a loss, right?
No question. What's amazing about the Avery Bradley story is kind of twofold. One, the Lakers, and Colin, I think you'd agree with me, before COVID and the quarantine, the Lakers were the best, or trending to be the best team in the NBA, right? They'd be the Clippers and the Bucks. That's fair. Okay. What coincided with that last month where they became the best team in the NBA? Avery Bradley was playing his best basketball, was finally making jump shots.
Yep.
So now you take Avery Bradley off that team, and that changes the dynamic of the Lakers dramatically. I like the J.R. Smith signing. He's a professional assassin, shot maker who can defend. But there's a reason he was out on the market. There's a reason he hasn't played a basketball game in the NBA in over 600 days. And while he's a nice addition, he's not Avery Bradley. So there's two different parts to it. One, changes the Lakers dramatically. And two, and for the worse, by the way. And two, the Lakers will never say it publicly, but if you're LeBron James, you got to be ticked. You got what? 1, 2, maybe 3 shots max of winning a championship. And Avery Bradley doesn't want to be a part of that team. Avery Bradley has a player option next year. It's his option. But I'm just going to tell you, LeBron never say it publicly. Other players never say it publicly. But I'm just educated guessing here that those guys are hot over Avery Bradley bailing on them when all they got to do is dedicate 3 months of their time. And I understand he has a son, 6 years old, has some health issues. A lot of these players are concerned about their kids just because when their families come down, the families have to be in quarantine for 4 days, right? Like, you got a little kid, you want them in one room, one condo essentially for 4 days. No, everyone's going to go. It's hard on every family, but you've been at home for 3 months and you got a chance to win an NBA championship. And Avery Bradley's out. That changes the Lakers for the worse. And I cannot think that most of those guys, not what they say on Twitter or on Instagram or in front of the cameras where they want to support their teammate. The truth is, they're ticked that Avery Bradley's not making the trip. Yeah,
a lot of people say stuff privately they won't talk about. I mean, nobody wants to admit that, but I do think there are Lakers that are not in a great mood this morning. Let me shift to this. So, we were talking about the Knicks brand, and I started watching sports around 7 years old. That's when I remember watching my first games, and that's when I became fans of certain teams. So the Knicks have been bad for 20 years. And that means if you were born 20 years ago, they haven't been relevant. And so 27 if you count the 20 years they've been bad and the 7 years until you started watching TV. Basically, anybody 26 and under, the Knicks have never been a brand, ever. Okay? If they're going to be irrelevant for another 4 to 5 years, that means nobody under 30, 32 years old. They're not a brand. I mean, you're old enough that you do remember they're probably a little bit of a brand to you. But when I read the Bill Simmons and hear his podcast, and he's like, no, LeBron wanted to go there. My question is LeBron the last superstar that wants to go to the Knicks?
Well, maybe. I don't know if Kevin Durant wanted to go there. Obviously, they apparently didn't have interest in Kevin Durant because he's coming off the Achilles tendon tear. Look, I would caution you, Colin, in that we've been friends long enough, and you quit when Saban went to Alabama. You're like, how many guys are going to? Dennis Franchione tried it, couldn't make it work. I mean, the fact is that one reason I know is not just because I'm old enough to remember when they were in the finals, but I'm the son of a New Yorker, a guy who grew up during kind of the time when it was the Mecca, and Red Holtzman led them to their last NBA championship. And I do believe that anyone who's been through New York understands that to the guy or group of guys that fix this thing, that win a championship, you have no idea the amount of fandom, God, deity-like status you will achieve. But it's harder to climb than Everest, right? I mean, think of the names they have brought in. Reputable people.
Yeah.
Larry Brown was there for less than a year. I've never thought much of Isaiah Thomas, but Isaiah Thomas is a legend in basketball. He couldn't fix it. Phil Jackson is a former Knick who has 11 NBA titles. Granted, none of them in leading a franchise, but that thing was a disaster. They brought in big-name players, Penny Hardaway, Amari Stoudemire, like you go, Chauncey Billups, and you go back through with Carmelo Anthony. They've tried everything. They've thrown the kitchen sink at it, and it hasn't worked. Now, the problem with New York is that Knicks fans, basketball fans, view it as a Broadway show. It might not be the best show, but it's the only show in town, and they'll go see it. The Knicks, while they may not be a brand to you or to some of the younger sports fans, NBA players who go through that building know there's something special about playing in the Garden, and it's always going to be a draw. Look, they tried changing up the front office, and it was well respected last time around, but they missed on Zion and couldn't even get interviews with the top free agents. Now they're going to try Leon Rose and Worldwide West. They're going to try everything. The fact is, though, that in New York City, it is still a brand. They're much more popular and much more watched, even if they're hated, than the Brooklyn Nets, who are a far better run franchise. And somebody is going to pick up that mantle and try and run with it. And somebody at some point in the next 50 years will achieve climbing that Mount Everest-like mountain. And to that person, they will be revered, like Red Holtzman is even today.
So with Cam Newton, it's interesting. There's a big gap between the betting market. Basically, the betting market's like the Patriots are half a game better with Cam than Jarrett Stidham, and the media, which thinks it's a revolution. Randy Moss, it's going to be more fun. To that I say, in Foxborough, they like winning. Losing and being stylish is not fun. What's realistic with Cam? Because the betting market's telling me one thing, not that much production. And the fans and the media are telling me this is going to change the league. What is it?
Well, I mean, there's so much unknown here. Look, I've heard people, really, really smart people, say really, really silly stuff. Like, oh, well, Bill Belichick remembers in 2013 when Cam Newton was so, like, it's 2020. He's had 9 injuries since then, And, oh, yeah, by the way, it's not like they're injuries to parts of his body that he doesn't use. He had a foot problem. He's had 2 shoulder surgeries. Now, I don't know about you, Colin, but the 2 things that make Cam Newton one of the most dynamic athletes we've ever seen in football are his legs as an athlete and his shoulder as a thrower. And when both of those are called into question, there's a reason only one team offered him a contract, and it's at the NFL's veteran minimum level. No one knows if Cam Newton is healthy, can throw. This is a big thing. He had to change his throwing motion because of shoulder surgery. He's throwing gutter balls, and it didn't look good last year. And I talked to NFL teams who are like, look, forget about all the flamboyance and the scarves. Like, we don't actually care. Like, the big thing is, can he throw a football? And how does he fit with what they want to do? And how do they want to use it? There's so much unknown here. But here's the last thing. The free agent hit rate is about 33%. About 1/3 of free agents hit. Then when you consider how long he was on the market, the money, this is just Bill Belichick doing a dumpster dive and seeing if they can get something from a penny stock. Really, that's what it is. Can he get something out of a penny stock? If it hits, great for Belichick. He sits Stidham. If he doesn't, he's got Stidham, who's just going to operate the offense. What do I think it really does? I follow Vegas. They have a tendency to know a whole hell of a lot more. And to people to think that suddenly now they're the best team in the AFC East, like, I don't know, the Jets finished, 7-2 down the stretch once Sam Darnold was back. Buffalo is now a playoff team. I don't love Jared Allen, but I do love what Sean McDermott has done. And Miami has to be better. Do I think they could have a little bit more fun? Sure. But we're depending on Cam Newton, who had one great year in the NFL, supported by the best defense and an unbelievable running game. And, oh, yeah, by the way, they played the year he won the NFL's MVP, they played one team in the regular season with an above 500 record. That's it. Okay, they played a soft schedule. Now, he was great in the playoffs, and he was good in the playoffs. They went to a Super Bowl. He was bad in the Super Bowl. But that was 5 years ago, several surgeries ago. The answer is, I have no idea what Cam Newton has left in the tank. I have no idea how they would use him, and if he can stay healthy, if he can throw a football. And neither does anybody in Vegas. Forget what the media is talking about, because they're dealing with dated data. That dated data goes back 5 years.
Good stuff, Doug Gottlieb, the Duggar, Fox Sports Radio, right after our show. Good talking to you, buddy. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.